if those arborvitaes get up, that's not the right plant for there. So there's probably 5 or 6 of those.
That would probably work.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, since you have them already, just
Yeah,
take
yeah,
them and move
yeah.
them over there.
Yeah, the ones that died, they just look terrible there. And if you pull them out, they have a big hole. So I went down there one night late with 2 colors of green paint. Okay.
You just painted them.
Well, they look better than brown.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about a cheap shot.
Is this us?
I don't know, where's Cora?
I'm here.
Oh, there she is. All right.
Hello, Cora.
Hello. Who am I talking to?
This is Meredith.
Oh, Meredith. I can't see anything, so that's why I'm asking who it is.
I can see you, so I'm okay.
Okay, I can't see you guys, but I know you're there.
Rex is here. Looks like you got daylilies behind you.
No, those are not daylilies. Those are a oriental lily that I grew. It's called Shocking, and this year they were just absolutely gorgeous.
Huh. Well, they look
They
gorgeous.
They were probably almost 6 feet tall.
Wow. That's a big lily.
With a little rain this summer, a lot of things have grown pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the warmth and everything, yeah.
So we ready to start the meeting, Cora?
I guess we're ready to start. So has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from last meeting?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I was here.
Okay, if everybody has read them, could I get a motion to accept them?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the June 23rd meeting for the tree board.
Okay, all right. I have a motion to approve. Anybody second it?
Second, Childs.
Okay. Anybody opposed? I guess they are approved. Kelly, you can just send me those and I'll sign them. Okay, moving forward. Do we have any citizen input, public?
Is it related to any agenda items?
What was that?
Okay, okay, if that's what you want to talk about, then now would be the time. It's not an agenda item.
That's 3 want to talk about that as possible.
The Hall Street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Birch.
Chuck,
Yes. Please state your name and address and tell us what you have to say.
Okay.
Well, we all live on Hall Street. My name is Karen Kenyon. Is this right?
Yes. I'm sorry, you said Karen.
Kenyon, Kenyon. And I live at
And the address?
555 Hall. And so this is concerning the Hall Street trees. The only reason that the removal of the trees was never disputed at the past tree board meetings was that the neighborhood was never informed of the discussion to remove the trees. The trees have been there for years. They are healthy and they just need to be maintained, occasionally pruned and maybe sprayed. And some repair work does need to be done on part of the sidewalk. It should be up to each homeowner if the trees be removed in front of their houses, not just indiscriminate removal of all of the trees. So I looked up the Arbor Day Foundation website, and they have a list of statistics regarding the benefits of trees and the value of trees to a community. Having large trees in yards increases a home's value. Landscaping with trees can increase the property values as much as 20%. The net cooling effect of a healthy tree is equivalent to 10 room-size air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. Texas A&M University laboratory research showed visual exposure to settings with trees has produced significant recovery from stress within 5 minutes, as indicated by changes in blood pressure and muscle tension. Thought that was an interesting fact. And so I'd like to add here that in discussing the tree removal issue with my neighbors on the corner of 7th and Hall, who are fairly new to my block, I think they will be very upset if all the trees are removed, because one of the deciding factors in buying their house was that they liked all the trees on the street. The Arbor Day Foundation points out that as trees grow, they help stop climate change by removing carbon dioxide from the air, storing carbon in the trees and soil, and releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. The trees provide many benefits to us every day. They offer cooling shade, block cold winds, and purify the air. A mature leafy tree produces, on average, nearly 260 pounds of oxygen each year. So this board is considering removing at least 9 large trees. Actually, I think there's more than that on one side of the street. And that would be 2,240 pounds of oxygen that will be eliminated from our neighborhood. Keep in mind that we are near 2 schools, the new Marshfield Junior High and Marshfield High School, and we have a lot of cars and buses driving on our street. It's nice to know that the current trees are cleaning the air that we're breathing. Also, a lot of birds live in those trees. Pollution and habitat loss are main contributors to declining bird populations around the world. Our street helps support our local bird population by attracting birds to the large old trees. Okay, so I'm almost done. I was wondering, has the tree board looked into the age and history of the trees and the idea of having our trees designated as state heritage trees? This area works at promoting tourism, and having trees on the heritage tree map could be used as an attraction. A heritage tree is typically considered irreplaceable, large and irreplaceable, and those trees on the other side of the street from me are really big. Age and aesthetics are considered, and the aesthetics of our street will change considerably if all the trees are cut down. So, in conclusion, most of us on Hall Street don't want any trees removed on either side of the street. I think it should be up to each individual homeowner if the trees in front of their house are removed.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Leslie Barnes. I also live on Hall Street. What I wanted to say today is that I grew up in Coos Bay, and I've lived in this particular neighborhood for 10 years. I'm the youngest person. I've been there for the least amount of time. These people have been there for like 3 decades. But I grew up on the other side of Marshfield, and there's 9 kids in my family, and I said, I loved growing up in Coos Bay. I'm going to, after I get my education, I'm going to come back to Coos Bay, and I'm going to raise my family here. And that's what I've done. I got my teaching degree, and then I came back to Coos Bay. And I did that because I love this area, and I love growing up here, and I want my kids to have that same experience. So I currently have 2 kids, 2 12-year-olds, a 10-year-old, and we have a 16-month-old baby that we are fostering. Regardless, I'm here today because I want to be part of the process. I don't want to be blindsided and suddenly just get a letter that says, oh, by the way, we're going to chop down the trees on your street. That was very upsetting to me. And so I'm just here to tell you that I want to, I'll just speak for myself, I want to work with you. I want to be a part of the conversation. I saw on the City of Coos Bay's website that communication is one of their goals. And so I would like to please let me be part of the conversation and tell us what you're thinking and let us just be a part. That's why I'm here today. I was born in Berkeley, California. I spent 9 years in Eugene until I moved here at the age of 9. So I guess I am bona fide tree hugger, hippie person. And I do love those trees. I do love my neighborhood. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm sorry, Leslie, can we get your address?
Yes, I'm sorry. 813 South 5th Street. We're on the corner.
My name is Rob Wall, WDALL. I live at 540 Hall Avenue in Coos Bay. Thanks for having us, allowing us to convey our thoughts and information we've had gathered. And John gave us some information. Roger did call me, very nice, informed me several months ago that this cutting of the trees, I became aware of, like Leslie said, like within a week to where it was going to happen initially. And then Roger explained to me that there wasn't enough money in sidewalk repair. To back up a half a step, my understanding is that the trees are healthy and fine. And Patrick Meyer, your tree inputter expert, verified that with Roger again, that it's been 2 months now about when I talked to him. I know Rex is very familiar with our trees. He's really helped us out in the past. Certain times of the year, mainly about, usually August, July, about now too. They get it inundated with aphids. So my information come back to me is from a neighbor up the street that it was too messy. She wanted the trees cut down. And then that was 1.5 years ago. So that's how I first became aware of it. I said, when do you think it's going to happen? And she said within a month or two. That's Dr. Lemire, Lori Lemire. The lady next to her is along with Lori. She thinks the trees ought to go. I know this is heresy. We were in court. But the lady next to me, I'm on the alley on the north side of Hall Avenue, where the big trees are. The lady next to me really wants to save the trees like I do, Leslie and Karen do. Her name's Rodney Potter. She used to own Art Connection. So we have and Jen is next to Karen. She wants to do save the trees too, or not have them cut down. And my understanding is if they're cut down, then obviously the sidewalk would have to come out. The roots from the trees are destroying the sidewalk. I have lived there almost 40 years. Next year will be 40 years. It goes fast. I raised 3 daughters there. It was great because they all went to Marshfield and walked up and back for lunch and et cetera. So the location, but also the trees are what attracted my wife Karen and I initially. And I know, I was told, if the trees are cut down, we'll get new sidewalks. The offset of what John told me, I don't know if you remember when we were out in front of Rondi's 1.5 years ago, maybe 1 year ago, that everybody get a new sidewalk and we'd all get new trees of probably your guys' choice that might not shed as much, might not be upsetting the sidewalk as much, etc. I can tell you in 40 years the sidewalk has not changed. And there are some differences there, I guess you'd say, in the sidewalk that I think can be fixed by not putting in a whole new sidewalk system. I think and I told Roger this, maybe John, I've offered to, at least in front of my house, there's 2 places, and I could, I'd hire somebody to grind them down, level them out, say, and then not replace the whole block of sidewalks where Ronnie and I live. That's one option, just idea ahead. I've heard there's terra firma or industries that can raise those and level them out or make them even kind of thing. So there are options rather than replace the whole sidewalk system on our side of the street alone, I was told by Roger, that it'd be approximately, at that time, $150,000 to do that. You guys didn't have it in your budget, therefore the hold was put on the cutting of the trees. Additionally, discussion had come up to put gravel in there instead. My wife is in a walker and a wheelchair sometimes, and I said, how do I get her to the car if I can lay plywood down or something like that? And he said, no, we want to talk about this more, is what we're after too. I mean, be part of that discussion. So there are other ways to me, rectify some comments have been made to me, not by any of you guys, well, maybe John, but not by any of you guys individually. And like I say, I know Rex is very familiar with the trees. 3 or 4 years he's offered to come up and spray it with Dawn to get rid of the aphids, which did work. You actually put in my whole lawn, so you know the shade and the protection there that the trees at least provide me. So from a selfish standpoint, I have the greenest lawn probably in Coos Bay, so, and the trees are a good factor of that. So anyway, on and on and on. There are a lot of values, not just monetarily. I'm a retired CPA. I retired a year and a half ago. I was here. I used to do the audit, present in this room. So anyway, I have a good history. I was born and raised here, etc. And went to Oregon State, came back here because I wanted to live here. Lived up on Oakway Drive for 5 years, then moved into where I am now on Hall Avenue. So I have a good history. We want the trees to be considered to be saved. And yes, there would be other ones probably put in. Maybe a new sidewalk at some point when we can all afford it. But I think there are other ways to rectify the situation for at least some period of time. So that's why. Do you guys have any questions at all from any three of us? You can always call me. I can get Kelly my cell phone. You can always stop by my house. I'm 540 Hall. I'm on the alley, which would be a 6th Street, but there is no 6th Street. White picket fence. So anyway, you guys come and see the trees. I'm sure you've seen them, but they're of great value to us. The neighbors across the alley actually trimmed theirs. They look really nice. They did the bottom portion of it, so walking easier. But anyway, appreciate your time.
So, Rob, I had a quick question. Are the wires just on your side, or is there overhead on the other side as well?
They're on our side for sure. I'm not, are they on your side? Yeah, there's some cable over there. We do get, that's a good point, because the power company for years, every 2 or 3 years will come by and say, we're pruning your trees. Their main prune job is just they're getting away from the wires. They're not really. So I have Spike Richardson come and sort of round them out a little. So I tried to prune mine, make them look a little better. We do have to keep them away from the wires. That's true.
I know
Yeah.
the Zipley fiber.
Yeah, Zipley.
On the south side, for sure.
So we're required to do that by other companies, I guess, agencies, besides you guys. So we try to keep it. I had a huge limb going literally almost across the street at one time. You may have seen it. I had Spike cut that down, and he does a good job. He can crawl right up there like Patrick does, so, or you. So anyway, that's where we're coming from. Thanks for letting us be part of the system. One thing that raised our interest anyway was there was a January of, don't quote me, 2020 meeting, I believe, and it was said by not any of you guys that all the neighbors are in favor of cutting all the tree down. And so we read those minutes and we go, wait a sec, there's a few that aren't, so at least we want to let you know that, so.
Good.
Okay, thanks for your time too, I appreciate it.
You talked about the history of the trees and how old they were.
Yeah. I wasn't there when they planted the trees. I know when they planted her flowering cherry on the alley corner. Mr. Irian lived there. He planted that tree in memory of his wife who passed away from cancer. And it was that tall when he did it. So those things grow like crazy, those flowering cherries. And the roots on those are pretty healthy too.
Yeah.
And they don't go down, as Rex knows. They tend to go above the ground sometimes. So I don't know. not, there is a reason that tree was planted there. Is 'cause it was- all right, good. I didn't know with that. I was almost went over this word. My trees have been there for 40 years, and the sidewalk hasn't changed. Those are the two things I do know. And they were big when we moved in. I mean, if I could remember back then, don't do it again. But they were big when we moved in. I don't know, maybe the same because of the pruning with power cut and weeding, so they were probably the same too. The sidewalks have not changed at all. And we did do the cement Band-Aid patching thing, Rodney and I did, where at least it'd go like this instead of like that.
Yeah.
But I think there are ways to do that, leveling out, even if it's a big grinder, well, they can grind down the bump, and make it level, and maybe it won't change for another 40 years, I don't know. Anyway, there are ways to look at it, and maybe we can do it together or something.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Rob.
it.
Well, Cora.
Well, I guess we have some things to discuss. Yes? No? I know that the previous information by Patrick was that the trees were healthy, and understanding that the city does not have the money in the budget to be able to replace the sidewalks at this point. Is it something we're just going to table until we have the money to be able to do that, or what are we going to do?
Hey, Cora,
Yes.
this is Meredith. I did the survey, I went up and looked at all those, measured them, et cetera, and I was probably the instigator for doing something with them, and I can explain my reasons. My background is I'm a forester, 40 years.
Yep, I know
Coos
that.
Bay. And in my assessment, I looked at all, 400 of the street trees in Coos Bay. These are some I had concerns with. There's birch trees also just west of the new fire department.
Yeah.
They also have issues. It's older birch trees. Older birch trees birches are riverside trees, more of a wetland tree. They have a very shallow root area around the base of them, and it leads to a lot of sidewalk/street problems. If you look at the about a block west of the fire department, those trees also have issues. They're outgrowing their space in the sidewalk, and they're raising sidewalk because of the shallow roots. I had 3 white birch in my front yard. I decided to get rid of them because I didn't like them putting roots out in my grass that raised everything. The other issue that I saw with them is the rot in them. Birches are very rot prone, and the more pruning you do, the more rot you get in that goes down into the bowl. It follows those cut scars, and it's the same as cherry, and the prunes around town also have issues with when you prune them, the rot follows the stem down, and some of the others I looked at are the trees up at Al Pierce, the Al Pierce building up just to the north side. They are planted in the 50s, I believe, so that makes them 60, 70 years old. Probably the same time frame as the birches. They have a lot of rot issues. You can see the rot going down into the trunk, and they have lost one maybe 10 years ago. It fell into the street. All the rest of those trees are similar. They have major rot issues, and they're a beautiful tree, but they're going to cause a safety hazard at some time. And I was concerned about the safety hazard of limbs breaking out of the trees, the birch trees, and the raising of the sidewalk, and a lot of times it has to do with the road surface also. They push curbs. Yeah.
What did Patrick do? Like, one of the trees next, my house is on the north side. If I'm facing the street on the left, I guess it'd be east, there was a rotted tree, and Patrick Myers identified that. This is 5 years ago, I'll suggest, maybe 6. And they came in and cut it down in the city's direction, I believe. And at that time, I don't know what he does when he inspects the trees or what you do when you inspect trees. Probably similar process, maybe? I don't know. If the city's relying on his,
Yeah, Patrick's an arborist, and Patrick's really good, and I can ask him. I know Patrick
well,
well.
I just wondered why he recently, 2 months ago, and then before, a year and a half ago, and this one I talked to him, and Roger talked to him, and you guys probably did. He said they were all healthy, except for that one tree. Because I said, how are these other ones doing? At the time he cut it down 5 or 6 years ago. Are they okay, or do I have a problem with them blowing over and hitting my house or something like that? Or losing a big limb? And he said, no, they're healthy, they're fine. And then I asked Roger what he had said, what Patrick had said. And he said, Patrick said the same thing 2 months ago. They're healthy and fine, like you just said. And I appreciate that. So I don't know. I'm not a force. You know more about it than I do on that part. But why wouldn't the sidewalks be in more disarray than they were, say, 40 years ago if the root systems are causing havoc with the sidewalks right now? I can tell you that. I do know because I'm out there every day. So I know that is the same as it was 40 years ago. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
But, okay, I appreciate your input.
Those are my concerns. I was just
Okay, no,
explaining to you my concerns.
Yeah.
I have a concern that I'd like to say, that the years that those birch trees have all the aphids in them, if that aphid infestation is not handled, and people park their vehicles underneath those trees, that sap can eat the paint on your cars.
I agree. It's water.
And that then becomes a city liability. So we've got a multifaceted issues here relating to those trees.
During my input from my knowledge, and I agree with you, what I have to do at least every 2 or 3 days, I have one vehicle I park out there because I only have a single car garage. And I wash it off and wash it right off. But I agree, if you don't take care of it, it will ruin your car if you just leave it. I don't know, probably a lot of leaves or bugs would. But yeah, that could be an issue if not handled, I agree. The other thing is the school does not allow parking during a given day time, during any school hours. Nobody can park out there unless you have a permit from the city. And I park mine out there, and there's one other car up the street. Other than that, there's no cars parking out there. And there might be more temporarily picking up their kid. They park down there because the kid doesn't want the other kids to see him being picked up, I guess. But, so yeah, it has to be addressed. And if it's not, it can be a problem. But in my experience, it has been addressed, so.
I might just add something there, Rob. The Dawn soap is just really kind of an aftershot.
Yeah.
It's just to kind of slow things down.
No, I agree.
If those were dormant sprayed in February with lime, sulfur, and oil, like we do fruit trees, you wouldn't have near the aphid problem. But that's something that would have to happen in February.
You're hired.
So anyway, but
Well, okay, I appreciate that. I don't know. It's a mess. The aphids
Yeah.
they are. Fortunately, it's, it's sticky, but it washes right off, so.
yeah.
And you know that, but I agree with that. I'd be in on the February deal if that's.
From a forester point of view, usually insect infestation is a sign of a weakened tree. So they may be attracted to those trees because of the amount of.
And they eat the leaves on there, right? We've even that's what they do. I don't know if they attack the bark or not. They may. I've never seen that happen. What we've done, we've even hired landscaping. It was Menton's outfit, Brian Menton's outfit, 20 years ago. And they would put plugs in
Yeah.
all the trees, but those didn't work. And
No.
they cost $900 to put those in. We had that done, we saw no difference in the aphids at all.
Yeah.
They say that the ants will eat them, they say ladybugs will eat them, but the problem with, if you put ladybugs up there, they go to the next neighbor sometimes, I mean, they don't stick around enough to, but the ladybugs are supposed to eat them too. That's what they do in the garden, down the community garden. I know they buy 15,000 ladybugs and set them free, but, so, I mean, we can do that, but it's a very temporary
But
fix.
this has been happening every year for years.
Well, they've been there as long as I've lived there.
Yeah, I've lived there 33 years, and every year.
So if they're, that's what I say with the sidewalks too, if the roots are damaging the sidewalks now, and the aphids are eating the trees and making them rotten, why didn't they do that?
In
30 years ago.
The problem would be way worse, but it's
Yeah.
not. It's sort of just.
I haven't seen that happen, but I appreciate your guys. I mean, like I say, you guys know more about it than I do. I'm just going by what I live every day.
Well,
40
in
years.
general, trees move sidewalks. But
Yeah, and that
uh,
makes sense to me.
if you look at any of the trees around town, any of the trees that are 40 years or
Yeah.
more, they move
Well,
sidewalks.
Yeah, in our building down by the liquor store where I had my CPA office, you had to replant a couple of those. I remember 5, 10 years after they were planted, you had to.
But
So, yeah, I agree.
The trees are not affecting the street though. There's no street damage.
Um,
Well, we're willing to help if we can, to try and
Yeah.
at least delay the harvesting. I mean, if we can, in any way. But, if they weren't healthy, I'd say right away, I wouldn't want an unhealthy tree blowing on my house. I mean, gets pretty windy here, you guys all know. I mean, 40,
Yeah.
and we haven't lost any limbs in those trees at all, so, well, the little twig ones.
It's a little debris.
Yeah, the little debris that comes down 40, 50 mile an hour. Yeah, anyway, I appreciate you guys'
Okay.
All right.
time, I don't want to take all your time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Cora, so we can move it along, could we make a motion just to leave those trees alone for right now?
That's what I think we ought to do. Just kind of table it until we have further information about what's going to happen with the sidewalks and et cetera. And I think that's a good idea to go ahead and make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we just hold off on doing anything until further notice on the trees in Hall Street, birch trees in Hall Street.
Okay, we have a motion regarding the birch trees on Hall Street. Anybody want to second that?
I wonder, sorry, this is Carmen Matthews. Wonder if we should just table it until the discussion comes for the sidewalk removal or replacement? Or are we just completely doing away with the removal of the trees in general?
The sidewalks won't be replaced while the trees are there because you would damage the trees so much.
Yeah.
So it's a,
Yeah,
But what
There
I'm saying
won't be
is,
no sidewalk
once you get
replacement.
the funding set aside for the sidewalk replacement, then the trees should probably come down. But if they aren't going to remove the trees, are we going to replace the sidewalks? It's like, what's leading what?
Yeah.
So are you saying don't remove the trees at all, or are we saying table it until, are we still moving forward with the actual plan for removing the
I
trees?
think the plan was to table the removal of the trees.
Yeah.
Does
And-
that affect the
And in effect,
ability
it's-
for the council to put the budget line item in for the replacement of the sidewalk, though?
From my point of view, you wouldn't replace a sidewalk. You can't replace a sidewalk.
But what I'm saying is, right now, the movement is to find funding for the sidewalk, and that's what's holding up the project at this point. So if we're not going to move forward with removing of the trees, are we changing that completely? Because then that would affect how the budget would come down in terms of streets.
It's a city thing.
Yeah, this is speaking from a city councilor point of view. What's leading the conversation?
That's a good question. I think right now, staff is just kind of in a holding pattern as far as the funding for the sidewalks. We do understand that if the sidewalks are replaced, then the trees will have to be removed in
Yes.
order to facilitate that.
Absolutely.
So we understand that. So which one comes first, the cart or the horse? I think at this point, staff would just follow the recommendations of the board. If the placing of the trees, tabling the removal of the trees to further along the discussion is appropriate, then we would follow that recommendation. But right now, we don't have the budget to replace sidewalks. And also the trees, the recommendation of the tree board would be the dictation on the tree removals. But the sidewalks is a hand-in-hand subject, but it's also a separate topic.
It is a separate
So-
topic, but, so, the tree removal is based on, or the sidewalk replacement is based solely on the removal of the trees or not?
At this point, yes.
Okay. Well, well, I think at this point, public comments should probably be, we've had quite a bit. I think we should probably focus that on the board members at this point. Are we,
Thank you.
yeah, are we just tabling removal of the trees indefinitely at this point? Is that what you're moving for?
I wouldn't say indefinitely, Carmen. I'd say we need to table it with the conversation we've heard today. I think we need to table it for now. And then at a later date, if money becomes available for the sidewalks, then that needs to be addressed.
Gotcha.
The trees will have to be removed when the new sidewalks put in. But for the time being, until that's funded,
Okay.
I would say we should just table removing any trees on Hall Street for right now.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
That was the motion.
So once that motion is made, do I have somebody that will second it, please?
I made a motion.
I'll second
Okay,
it to,
okay.
but I'd like to amend your movement to include future discussion.
Good.
That's fine, okay. So we have a motion made that we're going to table the removal of the trees pending whatever happens with the funding for the sidewalk and further discussion. So with that motion being made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion will carry. So do we want to send a letter out to those property owners and let them know that this is what we have decided?
Yeah, the city, we can, the city can do that.
Okay, I think that would clear up the air as far as, that we haven't said no, that we're not going to remove the trees, and we haven't said yes, we are. It's just going to be a tabled issue until the funding for the sidewalk is available.
So in the notes, it says, it was noted that the abutting property owners had been advised of the city's decision to not remove the trees at this time. So it sounds like it's already been put out.
When this came up a few months ago, we sent out that letter, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we're just revisiting that letter, that follow-up on that letter today, I think is what, it sparked some public interest, and so they were responding to that letter that we sent out.
So
At least that's my understanding.
So at this point, should the city go ahead and send out another letter with the same statement, or should the citizens that are here that raise their concerns be advised now that we are kind of tabling this issue for now?
I think that the city actually should send another letter, just because there are people here, there are people that are not here present regarding our discussion. And that way it's pretty clear what our intentions are.
Perfect, I fully support that.
Thank you, everybody, for your input. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for coming in.
And I just want to make sure that everybody signed in with their name and address in the back there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, I am. I just need-
Rex, can you let me know when it's okay to go ahead and proceed?
I think we can go ahead and proceed for
Okay, all right. So moving on, the Goosehead Food Co-op planting update. We made any headway on that? I know that we found out what the depth of the lines are and that it's not appropriate to be able to plant over top of those. So have we talked with Goosehead about the planter boxes that they wanted or anything like that?
The city hasn't reached out to Goosehead to discuss any type of planter boxes. My understanding is that the last meeting was the staff was going to get the depths of the utilities and provide those depths to the board today.
Yes, those depth amounts are in the form that was sent out with the agenda packet. And they are, like the water line is like 2.5 feet to 3 feet deep. The other one is 3.5 feet for the gas line. So those are really not very deep. That would allow us to facilitate planting anything in that area. And if we did plant something in that area, you're going to be interfering with those lines, and that's not something that we really want to do.
Correct.
Cora, I disagree with that. And I find ourselves being pushed in a corner here.
Okay.
If you can't plant over utilities there, then where do you draw the line on that? I mean, all the utilities run down Market Street, they run down Anderson. I think that's kind of a dangerous proposal to say you can't plant over the lines. I'd like to submit a 2-second drawing of something that could be done there. I just talked with the manager down there just a few minutes ago, and there's no reason why you couldn't do half above and half below in a culvert planting and put steel, like we do for the trees, put a 14 gauge tin on the underneath that and stay well above those lines. And then if you were, initially they wanted a crabapple in there. If you were to use a crabapple tree that's slow growing, that would be fine for 30 years in that containment. So yeah, I really kind of hate to see us back off from that. The other thing is I want to go down a pothole and find where that water line is. I am surprised if it would be 2.5 foot. So anyway, I'd like to just.
You think it should be deeper than that, Rex?
Yeah, I think so. I just
Well,
don't
yeah.
see them putting it in 2.5 feet. Until I dig down and find it, I won't know. And also,
Yeah.
I'd like to know what it is. I think they said it was AC, but I'm not sure. But it could be protected. It could certainly be protected with a sheet of steel on the bottom of that culvert. And the drawing shows here 2 foot down and then 2 foot up. And I talked with the manager down there. If you had a seating area on top, that would benefit it. They don't have seating. That's something you wouldn't have to put in at night like they do the chairs. It'd be just there for anybody to use. There's some possibilities, and I guess the reason this kind of perks my attention is because I think we need to be open to some different ideas in planting trees, and if there's obstacles in the way, let's try to work around them. But Second Street needs trees. It was just a crime. There was beautiful leyland hawthorns across the street, and they were just cut down. And I think the streets need trees, and I'm I'm all for that.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Rex. I was thinking that if you weren't going to put, you know, if you were, I was going to say, my response was based on the fact that we just couldn't let them sink the trees into the ground without some sort of protective
Sure.
of the roots, because the roots would go down and wrap themselves around the lines. And that, of course, that would create quite a liability issue of the fact that, you know, how long would it last before they broke the line?
I still think that Rex's solution is a solution. Some type of a container planting, whether it's partially underground or whether it's totally above ground. But I think that containing the roots to keep them away from the lines, however you do that, is the best solution.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with both of you. Like I said, my response was based on the fact of not letting them just sink the trees into the ground the way that, without any type of encumbrance to the root ball.
We do that the same way with our culverts when we plant the trees to direct the roots down. And this would just be keeping the roots from going below the layer of your bottom of the container
Right,
and into the utilities.
right.
Rex, you did a similar thing over in East Side.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Did those ones have bases as well, or is it just a,
No, those don't. And those are a little different. They're a little bit more aggressive tree. A crab apple's not aggressive.
Yeah.
It's a very slow grower, and they never get big. What happens above is what happens below. And you know, show me the biggest snow crab you can find is not more than 20 feet tall and 15 feet wide. So,
Okay.
but in East Side, we wanted them to go to the water. The reason for doing that in East Side was because
Focus
it
it
needs
down.
to be level with the sidewalk, and you don't want to plant them on a slope
Yeah.
to where they just look like they're falling off. So yeah, we want them to go in down deep. And on the one side, yeah, they had a water line there that we found out afterwards, and so we put them on the other side of the ditch, and that's fine. That's acceptable. I could understand that, but I think there's a solution there. I guess my thought would be, let's not rule out the idea of trees in that area.
so they are asking for permission to put something here, correct? That's
Yes.
what's
Yes.
written this-
Yes.
So I wonder if we could give them some kind of prescriptive planting schedule, like say with what you're doing here, where they could do some kind of bench seating around there. But one thing I worry about is making sure that the tree is tall enough so that when you're in your car, you're pulling out of that
Right.
driveway, that the crown of the tree is not in the line of vision for the traffic. So, you know, having a tree that's planted that is a minimum of, say, 8 feet or something like that, and it's already 2 feet above ground, you know, that might get it out of the field of vision. But I think we, you know, because it is where it is, it might have to be a prescribed height for what you're doing.
Yeah, well, that would be easy enough.
Yeah.
You could certainly keep at least a 6 foot. Most cars, unless you're driving a great big truck, most cars are 6 foot. You've got a line of vision.
Yeah.
So, a single trunk.
Is that something that we normally do? I mean, this is my first real time with the tree board. In terms of if people are requesting a specific planting, do we give them guidelines on height of specific planting?
I think in this particular situation, we would.
Yeah. Okay. That would be my recommendation, would be,
So, the City of Coos Bay Municipal Code, Chapter 8.3.070, talks about planting trees near or over utilities, and we have those minimum guidelines there. You know, obviously, we do have the municipal code for a reason it's been adopted, but, you know, is there any methodologies to get an exception to the Coos Bay Municipal Code? I'm not sure at this point. But I do agree with Carmen's assessment of the vision clearance, and I believe that the vision clearance is based off of, I think it's 3.5 feet of height is the typical eye level of somebody sitting in a vehicle. And I believe that the minimum height in that area would have to be 8 foot tall to the bottom of the tree or whatever to be able to have that vision clearance. So I think if the proposed tree meets those criterias, then I think that we would support that. But that still brings us to the Coos Bay Municipal Code of getting beyond that, which
If
we
you're-
don't have that ability at staff level to make that deviation from that municipal code, so.
What does the code say?
I'm sorry?
What does the code say?
Chapter 8.30.070 states that no street trees other than those species listed herein as small trees may be planted under or within 10 lateral feet of an overhead utility wire or over or within 5 lateral feet of an underground water line, sewer line, transmission line, or other utility. So,
So do we know that where the lines lie in that grassy area there? Are they right straight down the center of it, or where are they located?
well, we have Matt Whitty with the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board is here, and he may be able to speak to that if he would like.
I was just coming to observe, I wasn't really planning to speak. But I'm Matt Whitty with the Water Board, and we got this first request. John Eck called me a few months ago on my day off. I went down and met with Goosehead and John there, and we discussed planting trees over the water line. So since that time, I've done a little bit of research, and of course, Greg already pointed out that your code states that you won't plant trees over a water line, except those trees designated as small trees. And I've tried to find a listing that had that designated anything as small trees, and apparently I don't think that exists. I've seen some tree lists, but I haven't seen anything that says these are what our small trees are, which I kind of wanted to look at what those were.
Yeah.
But almost all of the water lines that you'll find in downtown are going to be 2.5 feet to the top of the line. That's our standard depth. 30 inches is the minimum cover that's required by the Oregon Health Authority. And rarely they'll be deeper than that, but most of the time they're 2.5 feet down. So if you're talking about planting 2 feet below the ground, understand you're 6 inches from that water main, and that's pretty close. And you said you were going to put a steel plate or something?
Pardon me, Matt, would you take a look at this,
Sure,
this
I can.
real quick drawing? We use a 14 gauge steel. Can you do it here? Let me go over the top. We use a 14 gauge steel around the trees when we plant them so the roots go down so they don't go under the sidewalk. Something like that could be done to protect that pipe so the roots cannot go past there. And the other thing is the selection of tree. They had talked about crabapple. Crabapple would be a good choice for that. It's a very slow growing, small tree. And I mean, open to suggestions. Pour the thing full of concrete over your pipe. I don't know. Whatever it would take to protect that, but still achieve a tree in that site.
My concern here is that in this case, this is a cast iron water main. It's probably about 70 years old. It likely has leadite joints. We don't know which ones have regular gaskets and a bell and spigot, but then some of them have a joint where you insert the spigot end into the bell end, and then it was actually a hot poured.
Yeah.
It's called leadite.
Yeah.
Doesn't have any lead in it, but it's called leadite, and basically that makes a really stiff joint. So if you start digging around those and those get disturbed, you can have issues with that, and we have. And when a large diameter main such as this one, in this case it's a 12-inch diameter main, one of the largest mains in our system, and also at the lowest elevation, some of the highest pressures we have,
Oh,
you're gonna have secondary impacts from that. So it's a concern anytime you're gonna be digging around that. We have a minimum separation from any concrete structure, and this is really intended to be horizontal, of 6 inches. We need to have room to get in and repair the pipe if it is damaged. So, you know, and I understand that the crab apples are small, but I just wanted to emphasize that, you know, there really isn't room right over, directly over the top of the water main to plant anything. It's only 2.5 feet there. And that just doesn't seem to me like enough room to really have a healthy tree. And to answer your question, that water main runs right down the middle of that planter strip. So if you're talking about 5 feet either side of it, it basically takes up the whole strip.
If I could
We
offer
would-
something, why wouldn't we allow them to put a above ground cement structure, like we used to have some that were down in the mall area that had trees planted in them, you know, like kind of like a bowl, and have it above ground instead of in the ground?
I think that's the best solution, Cora. Because if you have problems, you can always bring a forklift in, pick that thing up and move it to access your pipes underground.
Right.
That was actually what we discussed, and I thought that was the direction they were going to go, is they were going to put some planters, some large planters out there and have a small tree in it.
yeah.
I think digging, doing any excavation over top of water lines, especially the water line, is a hazard, is dangerous, safety issues, and I think that a surface mount planter would be the best. And it does two things for you. It keeps you away from the water main, and number two, it raises your plant because the surface of the planting will be, I don't know, 2-3 feet above. So your plant is raised, so it gives you additional benefits in sight distance.
Yep, I would tend to agree. I have a big planter, or a tree and a big planter on my business property, and it seems to be working just fine.
So just to go back and revisit the site vision clearance, so I guess at that point, the only thing that I would caution, or the staff would caution, would be the placement and the manner of, and the size of the vase or the structure, whatever you want to call it. You know, we do have that vision clearance, and it's included in the triangle, the vision clearance triangle. It is included in the staff report. So when we are working with the Coos Head Food Co-op folks to say, you know, let's keep mindful of that vision clearance area. There is a minimum height that you can go up, and that's, I believe it's 36 inches. That's, once again, that's at 3 feet vision clearance of sitting in the vehicle. So as long as you can see over it, then it would comply with the municipal code.
So they have 3 feet to go up, but I think it would have to be prescribed that it has a base, a bottom on it too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'd have to get it up off the ground.
It's got to be a pot.
It's got, basically, it's a planter. Because, you know, if you just built a raised bed, basically, but without a bottom, then it would cause the roots to go down and potentially be an issue. So.
Well, that's the whole idea of the steel. You don't put 1/8 inch down there. I don't know how thick your cast iron pipe is, but it's no more than 1/8 inch or 3/8. Put a 3/8 inch plate in the bottom of the thing so it can't go down any
Yeah.
further.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And in, you know, this case, it was 2 foot down, 2 foot up. That gives you 4 foot, that gives you 2 foot seating area. You could change that, you go 1 foot down, 3 foot up, give you a 3 foot bench.
I just don't think that we should be excavating at all. I think it should be surface mill. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I think one concern there would be moving it if there was an issue with the disturbed area surrounding the pipe. If
Yeah,
for some
that's
reason.
why I think that above ground would be much better than trying to put something into the ground, no matter what depth you go into.
Well, yeah, that's unfortunate, but I think here we are.
Okay.
It's a solution, right?
I think you need to look at not creating problems in the future.
Yep.
And I think that excavating over a water line is a problem, could be a possible problem in the future. Not necessarily tomorrow, but maybe 5 years from now.
Especially a 12-inch water main.
70-year-old.
Could be a doozy.
Of your drinking water.
Okay, so do we need to revise our plan here? What do we need to do?
Well, Cora, it's 1 o'clock. I say let's go with the city's recommendation that we do and Meredith, above ground planter there if they choose to put in a small tree.
Okay, all right, I'm okay with that. So is that your motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion made and seconded to allow the Coos Head Food Co-op to place a planter above ground with a small tree in it to suit their needs of wanting a tree there in their location. So we have the motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion is carried. So the city will write them a letter? Please?
Yes.
So we have one more item, and let's see if we can get that taken care of. The tree request of Coos River Highway across
Thanks,
the
Matt.
street from Sauce Brothers Shipyard.
Yeah, so the applicant is requested the ability to go out and limb portions of the tree just to increase their view of the bay, is our understanding. And so I think right now we are looking for the recommendations of the board to see if we can approve them limbing those trees out there to create the vision that they'd like to see for their property.
Well, typically, we don't approve limbing. That's okay by itself as long as they don't take the top out.
Right.
But the city doesn't pay for that. That's something that they would have to do on their own.
Yeah, staff right now recommends the approval of this application based off of just the limbing activities, not the topping of trees.
Leave at least a third.
I think if they're not creating a hazard, they're not damaging the tree, and it's not excessive, I don't see any problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't either. So I need a motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we allow them to limb up, but they save at least 25% of the top on the trees on Applewood, but it's at their cost.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion made and seconded to allow the property owner at their expense to limb the tree up to approximately 25% of the top of the tree. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion will carry. City, would you please send them a letter
Yes.
allowing the trimming of the trees at their expense?
Absolutely.
Okay, do we have any further discussion today?
Are we into comments?
We're into comments.
Okay, I got two. One is we're adding 5 Acer platanoides Norway maples to Bay Village. They are on city property. They're on the city right away, but we will be adding those this fall, late fall and winter. So they're actually on on the city, but they're paid for by Bay Village. And the only other comment I have is we're harvesting apples this weekend. There's a bucket back there with the Gravensteins on top and Coos River Beauties down a ways, and you're welcome to as many as you'd like. That's all I got.
Yeah, the apples this year are wonderful. My sister gave me a whole bunch of Gravensteins, and they're just absolutely wonderful. Anybody else?
This is Greg Hamble with the city. Real quick, you guys probably noticed there's a couple of seats missing today. Brian and Blair have tendered their resignations from the board. So just want to, although they're not here, thank them for their service. They've done a great job. My understanding is that Blair is relocated outside of city limits, and Brian is going to be off to college. Again, he's a glutton for punishment, but we just want to recognize that, and then that's about it for us.
Are we going to be running an ad for, to replace those positions? Craig?
Yes.
Patrick talked about wanting to be on the board.
Yeah, he'd be a good one.
So if anybody knows of anybody, make sure you send them along to the city.
I have a question or a request. Could we get a copy of who's on the board? Because, it changes all the time, and I can't keep up with it.
Yeah, I don't know who's on the board, all on the board
Is
either.
it posted someplace on the
It should be on the city website.
site? Yes?
What city website? Okay.
Yes, it is posted on the website, but I can email you guys an updated list as well.
Yeah, if it's posted on the website, I'm good as long as it's up to date.
Yep, that's all. I'm good there too.
I'm sure you guys are probably confused as to why I'm here. I've been on here for a couple of months, but this is my first actual attended meeting. I'm a council-appointed member of the tree board. My name's Carmen Matthews, for those of you who don't know me. Yeah, this is my
I don't know you, Carmen, so why don't you give me a little background, please?
Like I said, I'm a city councilor. I'm the small business owner here in Coos Bay. I own the Seven Devils Brewing Company. I live over by Mingus Park. I'm also on the Parks Commission as well, and was excited to be part of the tree board as I have a vision for the city, and aesthetics and livability are a big part of the reason why I volunteer my services to come to meetings on a regular basis. But yeah, sorry for my lack of attendance for the last couple of meetings. I got to get in the rhythm of doing your midday lunch one. It's it's not my normal time for city meetings. So, yep, I'm happy to be here and looking forward to learning from all of you and being a part of the tree vision for the future here.
Well, we thank you for your service. Appreciate you coming and being a part of us. And if we don't have anything further comments, I think we'll go ahead and adjourn for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Patrick, he was in